Hello, I'm Sharna Jackson,
I'm Holly Phillips.
Hello, my name is Shaun Duggan.
Hey guys, my name's James Lamont.
and I express myself through writing.
I've worked on soap operas like Brookside, EastEnders.
I've worked on a bunch of films and TV programs, but most notably maybe The Adventures of Paddington on Nick Jr.
I've worked most recently on a show called Get Even on BBC iPlayer and also Netflix worldwide.
I wrote these books.
But the past couple of years, my main job has been as lead writer on the CBBC show, Jamie Johnson.
As well as a show called The Athena for Sky.
And the amazing world of Gumball, for which I was lucky enough to be given these, which I'm still very happy about. Thank you.
I was brought up on a big council estate in Liverpool, and we were actually really poor, and we didn't have books in the house or go to the theatre or anything like that. But I do remember I used to love watching all the kid shows on telly.
I first discovered I liked to write when I was about 7. I was bought a diary by my parents for Christmas, and instead of writing what I did every day, I decided by the time it was January the 3rd to write a novel within that diary, and it was called Nero the Hero.
I used to really hate long car journeys because they are incredibly boring, and I would sit in the back of the car whilst my parents were driving and, out of boredom, watch all of the cars go past. And I would imagine, as I watched those cars go past, the stories of the people sitting in those cars.
My mum said I started writing when I was really young, like about 5, 6 even. And I wouldn't just write stories, that when I did it, I always, laid it out in script form. And I've got no idea where that came from.
It was really a chance to just be free and just write down any silly, funny, crazy, scary things that I wanted to, but I felt safe doing it because it was all within the pages of my diary.
And I think it was the first time I realised that when I was bored, I could use my imagination to stop being bored and I could make up stories.
I used to like performing and video editing and other creative stuff, but really just the writing just slowly takes over, and it's just what you realise that you just have to do.
I feel that writing is so special because it's so freeing, and you can write whatever you like down. You don't have to share it with anybody if you want to, but you can if you want. And you can sit down and take the time to really think about how you feel and put it on the paper.
The great thing about my job, writing, which allows me to keep being creative, is that you always get new projects and you always get new shows or new films, and so the job that you're doing never changes. You're always writing, and I mostly write comedy and things like that, so you're always doing the same job, but the work that you're doing is different every time, and it takes different skill set.
Obviously, I do creative writing. I'm making up stories a lot. But even in those stories that you make up, especially with teen stuff, I'm drawing from my own life, my own experiences, the things that I went through, and also things that I'm going through right now.
For me, one of the great things about writing is that it's a chance to get things out of your system. You know, if something horrible's happened in your life, or something funny for that matter, that you think you should write down. But it can be like a form of therapy.
Once you start sharing those stories with other people, it actually makes you feel less alone, because you find out that the things that you're going through, they're going through too. And also they get to feel less alone, because suddenly they're like, well, I'm watching this thing and I went through that and I've experienced that, so I'm obviously not the only one.
So for me, it's a way of, if I'm feeling sad, for example, I can make myself feel better because I can try and describe in words how I'm feeling and put it down. And once I've described it, it often makes me feel a lot better.
It's all different kinds of skills, and there's always different characters, and the characters have different voices, and there might be an action sequence in one, or one might be like really emotional, or you hope, or one might be like really witty.
And that doesn't mean you have to write something for an audience to see. You could just write it down for yourself, and that could be a play, it could be a TV script, or it might just be your own personal diary.
What allows me to continue being creative is that although I'm doing the same thing every day, it's always different. What I'm doing with it is always different, and I don't think that stops.
The thing to remember is that all writers are completely different. You know, you can write about anything. It could be fantasy, it could be naturalistic. I discovered when I was quite young that I think, you know, my own strengths are writing about my own life experiences and my friends and family's experiences.
I tend to lean on the theory that life doesn't always make much sense. And events don't always happen in real life in a satisfying way, which helps you make sense of them. But when you write them down and you give them a beginning and a middle and an end, it helps you make sense of things. I really think that we tell stories to make sense of the world.
As a writer, your job is to inhabit the brains of other people frequently, even if they're made up people. And that's a good thing to practice.
Through writing, I have learned to manage my behavior sometimes. Sometimes if I'm feeling angry, instead of shouting at somebody, I might write it down and really think about what it is that I'm actually mad about. And that helps me to calm myself down.
Imagine that everybody in a given scene has their own motive and their own desires and their own drives and impetuses and their own objectives within a certain scene, right? Everybody, like whether it's the superhero or the henchman or the person looking from across the street, you have to have a voice for each of them and think how they might want to behave and react in that certain scene.
Often, you know, the best stories are right in front of your eyes. You know, all our relationships with our families and friends are totally unique, and sometimes you just have to try and write those things down in a really truthful, you know, way, and you know, you may find that you've got a really authentic story of your own.
As an exercise, as a thought experiment, it's always good to put yourself into the mind of someone else as frequently as you can, and I think what that teaches you about life is a degree of empathy and a degree of imagining frequently what other people might be going through at any given time.
Writing is my favourite way to express myself, but I do like to express myself in clothes. So I don't normally wear bright colours, but I like bright colours near my head, which makes me feel brighter.
I doodle a lot while I write. I do always doodling. I draw a lot of the same things. I draw this guy quite a lot, like a sort of vampire ghost. He comes up a lot. This like kind of wizard king guy, I draw him quite a lot.
I like to doodle. I'm not very good at art, but I love art, and I love writing about art as well. I love doing that. I love painting my room. So I painted my room a dark blue, which is quite unusual. So I like to just think of ways that make me feel like me.
If I had any advice or inspiration, it would be to keep doing what you love and don't let other people talk you out of doing what you love.
Just always be, you know, as truthful and honest as you can. And I know that can be scary, because if you're letting someone read your work for the first time, it can just make you feel very exposed. It's almost like handing over your personal diaries, because you put so much of yourself into it.
If you want to be a writer, the best advice I can give you is to just do it. And I know that sounds very simple advice, but for me, when I first started writing, I felt very unconfident about my ability, and I felt very nervous about sharing my words with people in case they laughed at my stories. So the best thing you can do is just write it down.
People don't always know what their work is going to be about until they're finished doing it. And I think there's this idea that you have to like know what your great artwork is going to be before you start, and that if you haven't got a great idea, then it's not worthy of starting. And I think that's just untrue.
When I was in school, my spelling was terrible, so no one really thought that I could be a really great writer because I couldn't really spell. When I was at college, I don't think anyone really thought that I was going to make a great writer.
Also, when you write it down, you don't have to use perfect words to start with. That was my major problem. I thought, oh, I have to be perfect as soon as I write it, and that's not the case. You can always come back and edit it. So the best thing I would say is just to start. And you don't have to have a fancy laptop or a fancy phone or anything fancy to start writing. You can just write down. You just need to find a pencil and some paper and keep it together, and just keep your notes together. and then you have the start of the story.
What you have to remember is first drafts are never perfect. You know, the main thing is getting your ideas down, filling those blank pages, and then afterwards, you know, you can always chuck out the bits that aren't working. You build on the things that are. You know, with every episode of Jamie Johnson, all the writers, we can write up to, you know, 5, 6, 7, even up to 10 drafts more, maybe, depending. Some episodes trickier, you know, than others.
They were all wrong, and I kept writing, and I got better and better the more I did it. And that's my advice and inspiration. Do what you love. Don't let anyone stop you.
That's a really good thing to remember, is never expect anything you're going to be right to be perfect the first time around.
I think you work out what you're going to say as you say it. So open your mouth and start saying it. That's what I reckon. That's what I did with these videos.
Hello, I'm Adam from the Oak National Academy, and I express myself through making up ideas for stories. And my activity is, if you're stuck for ideas, take something you know, like a nursery rhyme, and muck about with it. Have fun. So something like, Millie had a little lamb, its fleece was black as ink, and everywhere that Millie went, that little lamb would stink. Or maybe Millie had a giant ape. It could do anything. It pranced and danced and played guitar. Oh, how that ape could swing. Take something you know, muck about with it, and have fun. Good luck.